What's good, y'all? It's your boy Choji. And I just wanted to talk today about the fact that Turtle Island was inhabited by African people, or what we want to call African people. But how a lot of folks is like, well, that can't really be like, if they were really here, why don't we see the inmixing, inbreeding with the other populations of natives, right? Um, but let's look at that, right? Because sometimes, when we look at the past, it's hard for us to understand how things could evolve from a start point. So, for instance, we have what we call like the Maroons in Canada here, in like Nova Scotia and other parts of Canada, with like, there's basically a large settlement of black people in Nova Scotia. And because it's not that so far removed, you can still find folk who look, dark like me. But majority of the people who come from Nova Scotia, like if you see them or whatever, who are from those black families, they're light skinned. They're not dark like me. They're actually majority of them are very light, almost white. And the reason being because the people around them are Europeans. So over the years, over the generations, intermix, interbreed. And then you get these white looking black kids. Makes sense, right? But how about if that population just stayed in that area? They didn't really travel out. They stayed there even longer, kept intermixing. Eventually, you'd be like, are they even black? They look like all these phenotypes that I don't know if we're gonna say they're African or not. And then when it comes to classifying a person right now, you're really looking at phenotypes and family bloodlines and saying all these families have similar phenotypes, so we'll consider them one type. All these other families have other types of phenotypes, um, so we'll classify them as such. But have you ever like seen someone who look like you but they're not the same race as you? Right? You ever had a doppelganger, or you ever seen even images of people who look alike and they're not the same race? Like that. There's even like memes of it where you see an actor like Samuel L. Jackson and then some white person, and they say, "Whoa, it's like Samuel's white twin," right? Or whatever the case may be. I'm just saying that phenotype is a broad term to say how your body connects itself together to say, this is my face. You know what I mean? My nose ain't gonna go further than this, and it ain't gonna go shorter than this. It's exactly this shape. We just say that's your phenotype. But these are traits. All these traits can be connected to different populations. So it's not like a big nose, big lips. It's just like um, Ghanaian or something like that, or just like Somalian. What you can actually do is see that as these different populations migrated throughout that continent, different immixing was happening. So the traits, there's so many more traits within what we call the black phenotype surviving at this current day than you would see in any other race. Right? So it gets confusing for a lot of people to like, okay, understand that point and then look at the fact that I'm saying folks who had the phenotype that you would consider to be African, those people were here before Europeans, and arguably even before those who we consider natives. Now, that's more of a narrative argument than a factual argument because the facts is whoever is here, right? I'm here. They say I'm from Jamaica, and they say the fact that um, my bloodline's in Jamaica means I was brought here on slave ships. I'm saying there's black people in South America, in the Americas, and it has to be proven that my bloodline didn't come from there, an admixture, and whatever the case may be. It hasn't been proven. It's been argued, but it actually hasn't been proven. It hasn't been proven left or right. Um, there's a lot of suggestion. There's a lot of proof that shows that yeah, there were lots and lots of black people here for Europeans. So folks are finally to getting with that, right? Even in Columbus's own diaries, there's all these proofs. But the piece of argument here that stops it from actually being accepted is the inceptions of when black people started coming here. Because if we actually look at the same proofs and the same narrative, we start realizing, okay, dang, like they've been coming on ships from when they had ships. But wait, there's bones and things that show presence of a people who are also of similar phenotypes here, like the Olmec heads and these things like that. Um, Before our understanding of Egyptians and whatever using ships. What's good, man? How are you? I'm good, brother. So, all that to say, now when you're trying to figure out, okay, so what could these people have looked like? Or what would they have looked like, these ancient people of the Americas? If there's a great chance, right, that the folks, the Asiatic natives who were coming through the Alaskan Strait from Siberia, mixed with whoever else was there, either prior to them being there or after they got there. Then you also have the people who they say are coming from Australia, right? The natives who made their way to Hawaii and other places, right? We have those kinds of Negroid type, phenotype people found in the population. But what about way back, the Pangea, right? When the world was all potentially one entire planet, like just not well, not planet, but just one entire landmass. Could Africans have just been migrating from just walking over? Is that a possibility? Right? What did the world so what could those people look like, right? If they were Asiatic type phenotypes mixing with black phenotypes, mixing with Australian Negroid phenotypes, and eventually European phenotypes, right? Because I'm not dark like my friend coming from Ghana right now. I'm not dark like my friend coming from Nigeria right now. So clearly I have European mixture phenotype in my blood that has light in my melanin, right? It kind of seems like straightforward when you just look at it. Like there was all kinds of people here being here before the English, right? Before the Europeans came over here, there's all kinds of people being here. And yeah, they might have came up against certain tribes, certain types of people that weren't dark African looking people, and they say, yeah, there's dark African people here, or we've spoken to dark African people. So then it allows you to be like, well, maybe African sailors and whatever Moors came here and left, you know, traded things and left. What I'm trying to say is, even if they traded things and left, they wouldn't settle. Nobody would ever say, you know what, I like living over here versus Africa or Spain or wherever. Let's settle here. And then over a couple hundred years, more people would settle. You wouldn't even have that thought process to think that there's bloodlines from those journeys in the Americas. See, so once you actually understand how broad history is, how many things that were happening on the planet at once, it's not just whatever European history is telling you, then, and plus you understand that, okay, with that truth, how could that evolve to looking like the world that we see right now? What other missing pieces to the puzzle? Because you have to study a lot of history to understand why the world is the way it is right now. You can't just follow the narrative, because the narrative ignores a lot of things, a lot. Like most folks don't even know about the Gullah Wars. So if you don't understand that black people in the Americas were fighting back against the government, or what we understand as the government now, for their freedom and to be able to move and do as they please, then you would just think, okay, well, slavery. And then, white folk said, no, like, slavery's not fair. So, and they freed the slaves or whatever the case may be. You would have no understanding of actually what happened incrementally. So, of course, you're going to just, because you're lost in the sauce. But I just wanted to make this video specific to the naysayers who's saying, like, Sir Van, Sir Van, Sir Van Ivan Sertima, or Van Ivan Sertima, his book. Folks was like, that book's been debunked. His book hasn't been debunked. His book just was saying, black folk were here before Europeans. It wasn't what they're trying to say is debunking is that or what they say has been debunked or why it has been debunked because they're saying his book doesn't show proof that they're here before the natives. But his book is not the proof that any person resorts to when they're talking about black people being in the Americas before the so-called natives. That's not. There's actually closer evidence for that. We don't even have to go as far as like the Moors. There's closer evidence. There's evidence in the 1800s, in the 1700s, 1600s, 15, 14. We don't have to go to know, the. We don't have to go that far. And these are documented facts. So, um, just like the fact that the first president of America, the United States of America, was a black person. Folks don't know this, you know what I mean? But this is a fact. And if you don't know that, that means you've only been taught the narrative. You've only been taught what is acceptable to be taught. You know what I mean? Like you only did probably high school education of these general topics. But as soon as you go to college and let's say you focus on history, world history in college, or American history, or Caribbean history, or any history that really allows you to dig deeper into the exacts of what happened, year by year, month by month, from antiquities, and you have to study and write full essays and this, and you're getting access to firsthand um, document proofs and you know what I mean, firsthand receipts, basically, like photocopies of diaries and access into libraries where you wouldn't be able to. The average person can't get access to see read these texts and these pieces of information. You come out wiser, understanding, damn, like everything's a lie. But the average person is not going to university or college to take these kinds of courses, right? So the average person is not thinking like this. So it's never going to be like status quo for us to just say, yeah, man, black people been here. You're going to look at me and be like, go back to where you came from. You eventually came from Africa. Bro, like the whole planet, anywhere you look, the antiquities of those people are dark skinned. That's just a scientific fact. It's for science to prove that, but science has been telling us, oh, the original man is black. And then they're trying to tell us this whole landmass was empty. So while the world was inhabited by only black people, nobody was in the Americas. Nobody. It was just empty out. And folks didn't start coming here until, you know, phenotypes evolved to have Asian, Asiatic or whatever, Negroid. Well, Negroid been here, but I'm saying Asiatic, Caucasoid or whatever, and Dravidian or whatever. I'm just saying it's clearly BS. If you actually take the time to study the information, the first-hand evidence and proofs, and even like there's so many people who've done the research from all kinds of backgrounds. And really the naysayers are folks who have something to lose. Like folks who's fighting for it, we don't even know what we're gonna gain from this truth. We just know it's the truth. We don't know if it's gonna change anything or not. We don't know it. It's just the truth. But the folks who's fighting against it are people who either are part of Six Nations tribe or this nation or that Iroquois or that whatever. You know what I mean? I don't really see no one who's not a part of some indigenous whatever tribe saying this information is false. This is basically those folk because they have something to lose. And before I end this video, let's speak about it, all right? Because those folks are light skinned. Let's speak about it, bro. I just told you that, like, all the Maroons, Their descendants are light skinned people now living in Nova Scotia. But what do you think? Let's think about this. What do you think the descendants of the folks who would actually be in bed with Europeans? Because there's a lot of tribes. Not all of them are registered with the government of Canada or United States or Mexico or anywhere else in South America. Not all the tribes have shooken hands with the government and signed up and registered themselves. But for the ones who have, why do you think so? Why do you think those are the people who have the treaties and saying the treaties have been broken? Think about it, right? So let's go with my premise. Black people been here. We've been here, right? Asian people came, we intermixed, so we have now, like, chinky looking black people, whatever you want to say. But then you have European people coming here, because right, the Asian folk came 5,000 years ago. So I'm trying to say black folk before the 5,000, right? So boom, but European just over 1,500 years ago, between 500,000 years ago, right? Is when they pulled up here. So let's look at that. They're fighting or whatever, whatever. Eventually, peace, right? Eventually, peace. But it would have to be peace for some reason. Maybe, I like one of the white shotties. We start slapping. She happens to be the governor's this or the head of this daughter or whatever. And she's like, Daddy, come on, man, allow it. Or maybe my daughter is dating the captain of the ship. And he's like, whatever. Eventually, peace. Because we got too many people intermixing, interbreeding, families being created. But what would that family look like? Would it look like dark-skinned African? Would it look like white European? It would clearly be a intermix. I'm not saying those are all the people who would end up making the treaties, but think about it. We just say yo peace, right? I'm still chilling with all my black fam. We're in our tribal vibes. Europeans are over there doing their thing, building their their original villages and whatever. They're pioneers, right? The pioneers are there doing their thing. But now the pioneers want to write their laws and they want to come do something on my land. I'm not about it. So who would be able to get me to be about it? It would be my grandson, who happens to be their grandson as well, who come to me and say, yo, grandpa, they want to do this, they want to do that. Don't worry, I'm going to make sure they do it this way. I'm going to make sure you do it that way. I'll be like, you know what? I trust my grandson. He's my blood. But he's also their blood. Right? So he's going to them, representing me, saying, yo, nation, tribe, blah, blah, blah. Signing off treaties on my behalf. I don't care about it. I ain't even with their thing. I just want peace. Generations later, they break those treaties. It wasn't my signature in the first place. It was my grandson who's light skinned like them. And even if it was my signature, probably okay, I'm intermixed and breed with one of their people. Now our kids is this light skinned you. And my people's is back there with their own motives, and I've have my motives passed down to my grandkids, but it's also their grandkids. Any way you look at it, compromises are gonna happen when you're intermixing two cultures. Or European and black culture, whatever. Whenever way you want to define these things, eventually there's gonna be an issue. Right? Because we're only called black because they stopped calling black people Indians and Negro and colored. It was black, Afro American or Afro this or whatever the case may be. But before all those antiquities, it was Indian. Right? So it's like, these are literal proofs back in like the 17, 16, 14, 13. Or not 13, but like 14, 15, right? You can find those proofs. Censuses or whatever, where they don't want to have the population, dark skinned population, no longer want them to call them Indians, and they're now black. But those same people used to call themselves or have themselves written down on as Indians. So, and not to say that that was our term either. We just had our tribes, man. That's what it was. We had our language, we had our tribes. That's a whole other discussion or conversation of why we speak English and how we've come to this place right now. But it's clear as day that when they slaughtered our parents, right? They kept the kids. They sent kids wherever they sent them, separated the kids from the parents, put them on ships, sailed them up the coast because you couldn't sail. Let's say you found a Ute in South America, you couldn't just like, okay, I'm just gonna ship into the middle and just go straight to Africa. Or whatever. There's currents, bro. What they did, they would go up the coast, and depending if the current's pushing you down, you'd have to go up in a certain direction. You'd have to do Z patterns, and there's all kinds of information about how ships maneuvered on the oceans, and these are things passed down from African civilizations. So it's nothing new. It's just new to a person who cares nothing about it, right? So, boom, yeah. So you have that happening. They're gonna bring the kid up to Canada or to Caribbean or whatever. Kid doesn't know the culture yet. Mom had to teach it. Dad had to teach it. So now this kid's gonna learn English or French or whatever. Gonna lose their language. They might have learned it. Maybe there's an older sister or older brother who knows something. Some things are passed down. Creole is created. This mixture, this patois is created. Clear. It's clear as day. I just look at the way I speak, my dialect and things I could just understand. Okay, we took from French, we took it from Spanish, we took from English to make our patois. But there's other native languages on the Isle of Jamaica. If I just speak on little Jamaica, much less the whole Americas, right? The girl I'm talking to right now, she's Brazilian. She's not light skinned, she's black. There's blacks in Brazil, and they think they came all from Africa, but realistically, they're natives, right? So it's like the reality is actually so clear, but the narrative has your brainwashed. So now hearing my information just seems like so far fetched, so far fetched. You know what I mean? To the point where my light skinned cousins are gonna say I'm not their cousin. Fam, we're cousins. Like you could have a light skinned cousin in your family right now just because a white person intermarried. Next generation now just be your light skinned kids. So what's wrong with these native youths trying to tell me I ain't native too? And that I'm trying to steal their identity. My guy, we're cousins. Chill out. Anyways, this is a long video. Just wanted to break this down. But yeah, enjoy your day. Peace.